Hello, I'd like to show you how to put fondant icing, or rollout icing as it's called, which really describes it well, onto this 7-inch Victoria sandwich cake. It's on a 9-inch board which allows plenty of room for if you're holding it round the sides. I've already covered it with buttercream. I made the buttercream from 3 ounces of butter and 6 ounces of sifted icing sugar, or powdered sugar as our American friends call it. There it is. You can see it's lovely and soft. It's like whipped up cream. Never have the buttercream too stiff, otherwise it'll pull the crumbs off the cake. If you do find that happens, soften the buttercream down with a very small amount of milk until it'll glide easily over the cake. So there we have the cake. Sometimes people, instead of using buttercream, they use jam to stick onto the... What we're wanting is something that'll stick the rollout icing onto the cake, and as I say, jam can be used, but I find that jam sinks into the cake, whereas the buttercream will cover up any little holes or cracks that are on the cake, making a nice smooth surface. So I have here the rollout icing already. I've weighed it and it's approximately 750 grams, or 3/4 of a pound. What you need to do before you start rolling out the icing is to make sure it's going to be the right size, and that is the size approximately that I needed for this cake. So how I measured it was, and do this before you apply your buttercream, otherwise you'll find you'll end up with a sticky piece of string. Down onto the board, up one side, across the top and down the other side. And there we have a piece of string that you're going to use for measuring. I have a long rolling pin here. Especially if you have a very large cake, you need a long rolling pin, otherwise you'll find it'll mark the paste. And what I want to do is to make sure I have a nice smooth top on the paste, and I'm going to keep moving it. That stops it sticking and also keeps it in a nice round shape. So a few rolls and then give it a turn. I'm using icing sugar to roll out on, not corn flour. Again, sometimes you see that corn flour is being used. Corn flour is fine because it's very, as I've just said, fine. It's very smooth, but what can happen that it absorbs very easily into the paste, and it could make it dry. So keep on rolling. We want it approximately 1/4 inch thick. Make sure there's no little bumps or lumps on your rolling pin, because these can always mark the paste. However, if you do mark the paste, you can rub it like that with the warmth of your hands. Usually takes any marks away. So we're getting near the size, I should imagine. Let's see. More or less. I'll just give it an extra little roll this side, and then I'll apply it to the cake. And how I apply it is I put the rolling pin in the centre of the icing, flip the icing over. Now, rather than stretch across the table, which makes it awkward, I'm bringing the cake towards myself. Then, watching what I'm doing, the icing goes slowly, otherwise you'll trap air, over, and there we are. Now, people sometimes get into trouble with pushing the icing down. In fact, pushing isn't the right word. You want to pull it up. Just gently ease it up. Ease out these overlaps, like that. If you've done any dressmaking, this is the sort of thing you do with material, so you're well into the way of it. Just the soft part of your hand into the base and pull it down. This icing, by the way, can be frozen either in a packet in a freezer bag or else when it's already on the cake. Freezes very well. The only thing is it comes out, and once it gets into the warm air from a freezer, you'll get condensation on it. Just leave it in the fridge for a day or two and it'll all evaporate. There we are, that's all pressed into the base. I'm going to cut off the excess, but I'm leaving some extra at the base because the next job I'm going to do is to make sure it is all stuck to the base of the cake. Which reminds me to say to you that when you put your buttercream on, do make sure that it's right down at the base. Otherwise, what happens is you'll find when you go to put the icing on, it doesn't stick right to the base. It's better to think about these things before they happen, then you don't have to try and get out of trouble. I'll just tidy it again. And as you can see, I'm using a turntable, which is a big asset because it enables you to twist the cake around very easily. That's done. Now I'm going to use what's called a smoother. You can buy these from the cake decorating shops. Smooth it, smooth the top of the icing over, go around the sides, smooth it onto the sides. And there, in a very few minutes, you have a nicely decorated cake. And you can also go like this, and that'll get you a nice curve on the top. I'll just get rid of this icing sugar, and then I want to show you something else. What I want to show you is a quick decoration for around the base of the cake. Now, traditionally, royal icing was applied around the base, piped scrolls or shells around the base, but that takes quite a time. And this is an easy method and very colourful, a piece of ribbon. So you measure your piece of ribbon, which I've already done. I've got a brush here. By the way, I use brushes that have a percentage of sable in them. Quite often in cake decorating you need a brush, and it's worthwhile buying a decent one to start with. So I'm just moistening the base of the cake around. I'm making sure the ribbon is right at the base. There's a little bit of icing. Right at the base of the cake, sticking one end, taking a pin with a coloured top just to hold the ribbon in position, moistening the other part of the cake and overlapping the two pieces, then putting the pin in. It's a pin with a coloured head so that I can see it easily. Once that's dry, it'll stick, the ribbon will stick to the cake and you can take the pin out. And there it is, right round there. I have already made, in another one of the videos, some roses made out of the same paste. If you liked, you could put a cluster of roses, maybe not on the little plaque, because I do it because it's easier to handle. But there you see, some roses matching up with the colour of the ribbon would look very nice. And also you need some leaves, because that shows the colour of the roses up. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that little video and a quick way of applying icing to a sponge cake. Goodbye then.